Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Galaxy's shocking discovery: Earth is the deadliest planet of all. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient blobs of the Galactic Scientific Congress, I announce, tapping the neural amplifier at my throat. My name is Vex Lurum. And yes, that Vex Lurum, the one who cataloged the acid dragons of Neptes Prime, the one who survived 3 standard cycles on the nightmare hellscape of Kroll, the one whose best-selling memoir, How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love Parasitic Brain Worms, has been translated into 78 languages and 1 interpretive dance. You're welcome for that, by the way, I add with a flick of my secondary antenna. The audience ripples with laughter. Good, they're relaxed, they won't be for long. Behind me, a holographic projection of a small blue-green planet rotates slowly. It looks so harmless, doesn't it? So peaceful, so survivable. I can't help but laugh, a sharp barking sound that startles several of the gelatinous delegates in the front row. For 642 standard cycles, the Galactic Scientific Congress has classified the planet Earth as a Class 12 death world. I pause dramatically, watching several audience members shift uncomfortably in their environmental suits. I am here today to tell you that we, the brightest minds in 17 galaxies, have been catastrophically, hilariously, and dangerously wrong. The murmuring begins just as I expected. Scientific egos are such fragile things. Wrong, comes a shout from the back. It's Professor Krill Tech, my old mentor, always so punctual with his outrage. Earth has claimed the lives of 27 research expeditions. The atmospheric analysis alone is incomplete, I cut in, enjoying this far too much. My third heart is practically doing backflips in my thoracic cavity. And that casualty count? Actually 39 expeditions. Your data is outdated, Professor. More murmurs, more shifting, more delicious tension. But fear not. Your favorite xenobiologist, me in case that wasn't abundantly clear, I point to myself with all 4 upper appendages, has returned from Earth with the answer to the galaxy's greatest mystery. And trust me, it's not what any of you smug tenure-track academics predicted in the betting pool. Yes, I know about the betting pool. No, Professor Zangrock, your theory about sentient clouds was not even close. The Frostian professor's crystal face shatters into what passes for embarrassment among his kind. I take a moment to sip from my nutrient pack, not because I need it, but because I know it drives them crazy. The Grand Arbiter herself, Tissa Voon, her elongated head wobbling on that ridiculous ceremonial neck brace, gives me the signal to continue, as if I needed permission. Ha! Before I present my findings, let me remind you all that I am the first xenobiologist to not only reach Earth's surface, but to interact with its dominant species and return with all my original organs. Well, most of them. Liver number 3 had to be replaced, but that was entirely due to, I clear my throat tubes, recreational research purposes. The hologram behind me zooms in on a continent, then a region, then a specific woodland area where my research took place. What I discovered there has forced me to recommend an entirely new classification system, because, my distinguished colleagues, Earth isn't a death world at all. It's something far, far worse. I gesture to my assistant Plex, who triggers the next hologram, a bipedal creature with pitifully few limbs and no sensible exoskeleton whatsoever. Several audience members gasp. One faints outright. I know what you're thinking. How could this be the dominant species of the most dangerous planet in the charted universe? Well, buckle your safety restraints, fellow scientists. You're about to find out. I bare my teeth in what humans call a smile. The front row recoils in terror. Perfect start. In the classification controversy, let's review the facts, I continue, packing across the stage with deliberate steps. My specialized gravity boots make satisfying thunk sounds against the polished quantum crystal floor. In the year 7829 Galactic Standard, the first automated probe reached Earth. It transmitted data for exactly 7 minutes before going silent forever. Yeah. I pause for effect, watching several scientists nervously adjust their breathing apparatuses. The second probe lasted 12 minutes. The third, a whopping 22. When we finally sent a proper research vessel with actual sentient beings aboard, not a single transmission after atmospheric entry. Just static, then nothing. I snapped my digits loudly, making the front row jump. Gone, poof, vanished. The hologram shifts to display an impressive list of failed missions, each with their own disastrous outcome. The Trangalian expedition of 8046. All 6 researchers found themselves mysteriously disassembled. The Veluxian deep space submersible surfaced with its entire crew turned inside out, and get this, still alive and somehow singing a cheerful melody. The famous key Aztec xenobiologist Dr. Morlack returned as nothing but a head in a jar, claiming it was, and I quote, an improvement over my previous arrangement. Professor Kriltak interrupts, his voice quavering. But you knew him? These incidents led to Earth's classification as a Class 12 death world, the deadliest designation in our system. What could possibly be worse? Patience, Professor, I'm getting there. I snap back, enjoying the way my voice booms across the chamber. After the Meridian disaster, you all remember when that luxury cruise liner made an emergency landing and returned with every passenger convinced they were various Earth breakfast pastries. The Congress established the infamous betting pool. I project a new hologram showing the current wagers. Ah, yes, the theories. Microscopic brain-eating parasites was the early favorite. Then came the gravity well distortion hypothesis. The atmospheric hallucinogen theory had quite a following for a while. My personal favorite, Administrator Bloob's suggestion that Earth is actually a sentient planet that enjoys playing with its food. Creative but wrong. The audience chuckles nervously. For 7 decades, you intellectual giants have been throwing research funds at this problem. And what do we have to show for it? 47% of our xenobiological research budget gone, 312 researchers missing, and one very strange cult of scientists who now worship something called maple syrup. I slam my appendage down on the podium, causing the hologram to flicker. That's why I decided to go myself. Yes, me, greatest living xenobiologist or not, I was fully prepared to sacrifice myself in the name of science. My mate protested. My spawn clutch begged me to reconsider. My insurance provider immediately tripled my premiums and added 17 new exclusion clauses. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that the audio system amplifies to dramatic effect. But someone had to solve the Earth mystery. Someone had to live among these creatures. Someone had to come back with the truth. And that someone obviously was me. First observations, my approach was cautious, I explained, bringing up footage from my ship's external cameras. I spent 3 full orbital cycles observing Earth from space. And what did I see? Contradictions, maddening, inexplicable contradictions. The hologram shows the blue-green planet rotating slowly. Here we have a world where 70% of the surface is covered in dihydrogen monoxide, a solvent so aggressive it can dissolve almost anything given enough time. Most species would consider this a nightmarish ocean planet. And yet, the remaining 30% is somehow even more dangerous. Dangerous? I tap my control pad, and the image zooms in on various Earth landscapes. Behold, regions so cold that molecular movement practically stops, adjacent to areas so hot that proteins spontaneously denature. Zones where toxic gases spew directly from the planet's core, where the very ground periodically liquefies and swallows everything above it. Locations where the air itself ignites without warning. And most baffling of all, millions of bipedal organisms not just surviving in these conditions, but deliberately vacationing in them. Several gasps ripple through the audience. A Flargan scientist in the 3rd row begins to hyperventilate, their methane sacs pulsating rapidly. My orbital analysis confirmed what we already knew. Earth should be uninhabitable. The gravitational forces alone would crush most sentient species. The radiation from their unshielded star should cause catastrophic mutations. The atmospheric composition includes several elements we classify as industrial-grade toxins. And don't get me started on the microorganisms. Each cubic centimeter of Earth air contains enough pathogens to sterilize an entire Nubian colony ship. I take another sip from my nutrient pack for dramatic effect. But eventually, observation wasn't enough. I needed direct contact. My voice drops ominously. I selected a landing site in a relatively temperate region, what the locals call a national park. Their designation suggested some level of safety. I laugh a sharp barking sound. Safety on Earth, the very concept is hilariously absurd. The display shifts to my helmet camera footage. A wooded area, eerily peaceful. My first moments on Earth's soil were suspiciously uneventful. The atmosphere didn't dissolve my exoskeleton. The gravity didn't immediately pulverize my internal support structures. The local star didn't burn through my protective coating. It was almost pleasant. This should have been my first warning sign. The footage continues, showing a small brown creature approaching my landing pod. And then I encountered my first Earth organism. The locals call it a squirrel. Observe its behavior. The audience watches as the small mammal approaches, twitches its tail, and then, without provocation, launches itself from a standing position to a vertical surface 5 times its body length away, defying several laws of physics in the process. Note the biomechanical impossibility of this movement. The creature can literally run up surfaces at 90 degrees angles. It can fall from heights that would liquefy any reasonable organism and walk away completely unharmed, and the locals consider this mundane. More footage plays, this time of a lake area. But the true horror revealed itself near a water collection basin. I encountered these. The display shows a flock of large birds with elongated necks. Earth designation, Canadian geese. Do not be fooled by their unassuming appearance. These creatures are territorial berserkers with no fear response whatsoever. When I attempted to collect a simple soil sample within what I later learned was 500 meters of their young, they mounted a coordinated aerial assault that my military-grade defensive systems barely repelled. I shake my head, mandibles clicking in remembered terror. The worst part, I later observed human children, feeding these battle monsters for entertainment. This was when my first hypothesis began forming. Either humans possess some sort of psychic dampening field that pacifies Earth's wildlife, or, I pause dramatically, scanning the audience, or the humans themselves are the most terrifying thing on that planet. Spoiler alert, it's the second one. My first direct contact with a human occurred on day 2 of my expedition. I continue, adjusting my posture to display appropriate scientific gravitas. The hologram shifts to show footage from my personal recorder. This specimen identified itself as Mackenzie Rivera, Park Ranger. Note the casual way it approaches a completely unknown alien life form. The audience watches in horror as the human, a tall female with dark head fibers tied back, strides directly up to my research vessel and raps sharply on the exterior with her knuckles. "Hello, in there. This is a protected wildlife area. You need a camping permit." Her voice rings out through the speakers. "No defensive posture," I point out, my voice rising with remembered disbelief. "No weapons drawn, no emergency comms. This human's first concern was whether I had proper documentation." I fast forward to our face-to-face meeting outside my ship. "Oh, cool costume," Ranger Mackenzie says in the recording, looking me up and down. "You here for that sci-fi convention in Portland? You took a wrong turn about 40 miles back." Observe the human's bizarre physiological features, I narrate, freezing the frame and highlighting specific points on Mackenzie's body. Humans have only 2 eyes, limiting their visual field to approximately 120 degrees. They have no secondary respiration system. Their protective covering, this thin, pathetically vulnerable skin, tears if they so much as brush against a mildly abrasive surface. I advance the footage, showing Mackenzie leading me along a forest trail. And yet, despite these catastrophic evolutionary disadvantages, humans casually traverse environments filled with toxins, predators, and natural hazards with zero protective equipment. When I inquired about her emergency exoskeleton, Ranger Mackenzie laughed. She was wearing nothing but a thin fabric covering and had the audacity to tell me that I was overdressed for a spring hike. The audience murmurs in disbelief. Perfect. The humans' casual relationship with mortal danger became even more apparent as our interaction continued. The footage shows Mackenzie suddenly stopping on the trail, holding up her hand. "Hold up, buddy, bear," she says calmly, pointing to a massive brown predator approximately 30 meters ahead. The camera shakes violently as my recording equipment captures my panic response. Meanwhile, Ranger Mackenzie simply reaches into a small pouch, removes a canister, and continues speaking in a conversational tone. "No big deal, just a black bear. They're usually pretty chill unless they've got cubs around." "No big deal," I exclaimed to the audience, pausing the footage. This apex predator outweighed her by at least 300%, possessed natural weapons that could disembowel her with a single swipe, and she classified the encounter as no big deal. I resume the footage, showing Mackenzie calmly directing me to back away slowly, while she maintains eye contact with the predator. Humans, I later discovered, have categorized Earth's predators into helpful subgroups such as usually won't eat you, might eat you if you're annoying, and will definitely eat you, but they're endangered so we protect them anyway. Their preservation instinct is fundamentally broken. I switched to footage from later that day. The true horror of humanity revealed itself during the dinner ritual. Ranger Mackenzie invited me to her cabin to meet some colleagues, to observe their nutritional practices. The audience watches as humans gather around a table laden with various items. These creatures are omnivores in the most terrifying sense. They will consume essentially anything: plants, animals, fungi, substances that are actively toxic. This item, I highlight a reddish bottle on the table, contains capsaicin, a chemical so caustic it's used as a defensive weapon throughout the galaxy. Humans put it on their food deliberately to enhance flavor. A scientist in the front row retches into their containment unit. Most disturbing of all, they invited me to participate. "Try the chili," they said. "It's not that spicy," they claimed. My digestive sac needed 3 weeks of intensive medical treatment afterward, and they found it amusing. To truly understand these baffling creatures, I explain, packing with renewed vigor, I needed to observe them in their natural habitat. Ranger Mackenzie invited me to join what she called a weekend camping trip with several of her associates. For science, I accepted this potential death sentence. The hologram shows footage of me reluctantly boarding a primitive ground transportation vehicle called a Jeep Wrangler. 4 humans and myself embarked on this expedition. Besides Ranger Mackenzie, there was Tom Blackwell, a wildlife photographer who deliberately seeks out Earth's most dangerous predators; Dr. Jada Williams, a botanist who routinely handles plants so toxic they could sterilize an entire space sector; and Rohan Patel, an extreme sports enthusiast, whose entire existence seems dedicated to finding increasingly improbable ways to court death. The footage shows the vehicle bouncing violently along an unpaved road. Note how the humans chose to disable the vehicle's stabilization system, what they call suspension for fun. They were literally cheering as we were thrown about the cabin. My exoskeleton sustained 3 microfractures in the first 20 minutes, and when I expressed concern, Tom simply slapped my carapace and said, "That's nothing. Wait till we hit the creek crossings." Several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. We eventually reached what they proudly called the middle of nowhere, a remote region with 0 emergency services, medical facilities, or communication infrastructure. As we began unloading supplies, I noticed dark clouds forming. "Storm coming," Mackenzie noted with casual indifference, as if imminent meteorological chaos was a minor footnote. The footage shifts to show a time lapse of the humans setting up their camp, as the sky darkens ominously above them. What happened next defies rational explanation. Earth's weather system, already unstable and violent, decided to demonstrate its full repertoire of death-dealing possibilities. First came wind gusts strong enough to uproot vegetation, then precipitation so intense it reduced visibility to mere meters. The temperature dropped 12 degrees in 8 minutes, and the humans, they found this amusing. The video shows the humans huddled under a fabric canopy, laughing and passing around sealed containers of liquid. "This is nothing," Rohan told me, while literally being illuminated by atmospheric electrical discharges. Last year, I was climbing in the Rockies when a thunderstorm hit. My hair stood straight up, my ice axe started buzzing, and I had to sprint down 2,000 ft of exposed ridge while getting pelted with hail the size of golf balls. I paused the footage, my appendages trembling slightly at the memory. He told this story while laughing. The others responded by competing with their own near-death experiences. It was like some grotesque ritual where they established social hierarchy through comparing survival scenarios. The hologram advances to nightfall. The humans sit around a controlled combustion they call a campfire. As darkness fell, the true psychological aberrations of humanity revealed themselves. They began telling ghost stories, fictional narratives specifically designed to induce fear responses. They deliberately frighten themselves for entertainment. The audience gasps, "What species does this?" The footage shows the humans passing food items on sticks over the fire. Observe their bizarre cooking ritual. They deliberately char food over open flame, introducing carcinogens, while singing what they informed me was a traditional campfire song about an aquatic human child who dies violent deaths in each verse. The song had 18 verses. I switched to footage from the following morning. Just when I thought I had reached the limit of human insanity, Day 2 of our expedition introduced me to recreational danger activities. Humans undertake these specifically because they might result in serious injury or death. The hologram shows Rohan unfolding a fabric wing structure on a cliff edge. This human launched himself off a 300-meter cliff with nothing but a glorified bed sheet to prevent fatal impact. They call it paragliding. When I inquired about the safety fail-safes, he responded, and I quote, "That's what makes it exciting, bro. No safety net." No, the audience watches in horror as Dr. Williams disappears into a narrow rock crevice. Cave exploration, they called this, voluntarily wedging yourself into confined underground spaces where you might become permanently trapped. When I asked what would happen if the lights failed, Jada shrugged and said, "That's why we bring spares, usually." The footage shifts to Tom wading into a rapid-flowing river with a stick and line. Fly fishing in bear country, apparently a relaxing hobby. When I pointed out the multiple apex predators clearly visible on the opposite bank, Tom said, and again I quote, "Yeah, they're out for breakfast too, just make noise so you don't surprise them. Surprising a grizzly is generally considered a bad move." I faced the audience directly, all 4 of my eye stalks fully extended. By the end of Day 2, I had documented 27 distinct activities that any rational species would classify as suicidal behavior, which the humans categorized as just a chill weekend outdoors. I began to understand that the previous research expeditions hadn't been killed by Earth itself. They had been driven to self-destruction by trying to comprehend the human psyche.